Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the College Orientation Summer Series webinar. My name is Stephanie Mardall, and I'm the graduate intern for College Programming and Orientation. And today I'll be serving as the moderator for this webinar. Today's webinar is Humanities and New Collegiate Division. The New Collegiate Division provides a place for academic experiments, courses, and programs that range across disciplines, departments, and divisions. The Humanities Collegiate Division is the college's home for humanistic inquiry and artistic practice. Hear from current majors and minors about their academic journeys and experience within the Humanities and New Collegiate Divisions. So I'll go over the agenda and our plan for today. Joining us today are several current students and UCMP mentors who are here to share about their own academic journeys. We will have the panelists first introduce themselves, and then we'll move on to the Q&A portion. We've collected a variety of questions from the registration forms, which we will start with. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to add those via the Q&A bottom portion of your screen right there. And please note, you are also able to see which questions have already been provided and even event upvote questions that you are interested in. So we'll go ahead and jump right into panelist introductions. Oscar, why don't you start?
All right, thank you, Stephanie. My name is Oscar Taub. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm a art history and economics major. And I went into college. Basically, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to major in. I knew I was interested in art history. I'd taken a class in high school that interested me a lot, and I thought it could be something that I'd have fun with. And then near the end of my first year, I took an art history class that was part of the core curriculum, and I enjoyed it a ton. It was super fun, and I just got really into it, and I was like, I really want to be an art history major. So that was kind of my journey with my major. And let's see, I'm not quite sure on my intended career field or that in general, but I took a class recently on public art, and I thought it was super cool, and I'd love to work with public art and help with that. And yeah, so that is definitely an interest, and that's something I would love to work with in the future.
Great, thank you, Oscar. Anna?
Hi, my name's Anna. I am going to be a second year in the college. So I went through starting out UChicago during the pandemic. I am a history and cinema and media studies double major. When I entered the college, I was actually, planning on doing art history because I knew I really loved the arts and history. And so I actually took a film class in my first quarter here, thinking I would maybe minor or maybe use it for the arts core, but really fell in love with it and decided to declare that as my major and kind of branch off. In my 1 year as a student here, I've been able to take a lot of really interesting classes, both for the core and for my majors. Some in which where I've been able to create archives, others where I've done museum work. And I'd be happy to talk about any of that. Right now, I am also an intern at a production management company. So I'm doing a lot that's related to filmmaking and TV, which is really interesting and possibly what I'll do with a career once I graduate.
Thank you, Anna. Alice?
Hi, everyone. My name's Alice. I'm from Malaysia and Thailand, and I'm a rising third year history and law letters and society double major. I'm also pre-law, and landing on this combination of majors wasn't super straightforward either. I dabbled in a bunch of other majors and finally landed on this combination. And apart from academics, I'm also involved in a lot of the performing arts here on campus. I'm in a hip hop dance crew. I also volunteer to teach piano lessons to kids on the south side of Chicago. And I'm also in UChicago's piano program. I also work in a psych lab here on campus, and I'm also part of Women in Law.
Thanks, Alice. And lastly, Jeffrey.
Hi, my name's Jeffrey. I'm from the beautiful state of New Jersey. In my dining room next to my Wi-Fi router right now, so if you hear outside noises, that's outside. But I'm a fundamentals issues and text major, and I'm also attempting a major in chemistry. On campus, I'm part of an environmental RSO called the Phoenix Society Sustainability Initiative, where we just do environmental projects. And I also play club table tennis for the school. I came to fundamentals kind of on a roundabout way too, like everyone else. I didn't come in knowing what it was. I came to campus as a chemistry major or a lawyer, and I was like, I'm either gonna be a chemist or lawyer because I didn't know what either of those really meant, but I was supposed to like know. And then I ended up just taking classes in whatever interested me, a lot of different fields, including art history, film studies, history. And my advisor sort of noticed that I was going all over the place, and she sort of guided me. She's like, "What's your central focus is somehow on people. Like that's the one thing that's keeping you. That's the common thread in all of those." And that she said that I would really thrive in fundamentals, and so that's where I am now.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, and everybody, all the panelists, for introducing yourselves. And as a quick reminder, we have current students assisting us with the panels today, as they all explained, who will be sharing about their personal experience at UChicago. So please note if you have any specific questions about sequences, placement tests, or anything specific to you as an incoming student, we encourage you to reach out to your assigned academic advisor who can best support you. Our goal today is for you to hear from current students about their academic journey. So let's go ahead and jump into the Q&A portion with some registrations from some questions from pre-registration. And as a reminder, you can send any other questions in the Q&A chat box below at the bottom of your screen. So our first question for all of you is, how did you work with your academic advisor to coordinate your academic plan or plan out courses? And do you have any tips or advice for students on working with your academic advisor?
I can start with that because I mentioned my advisor, because my advisor was really great. I met with her. I tried meeting with her at the beginning of every quarter because the first third of the quarter is called add drop, where you can add and drop classes that you like or don't like and test them out. And so because I was able to meet with her before that deadline expired at the beginning of every quarter, I could just be like, I like these ones, I don't like that one. And then she would basically go through them and be like, drop this one, take that one instead. And that was amazing. I wouldn't have met half the classes or known about them without her and without doing that.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Our next question is, how have your academic plans changed or ebbed and flowed over the years?
I can take this one because I've gone through in my head like a lot of different combinations of majors. And so I came into UChicago thinking I'd be a history and English double major. And then I got really interested in psychology, but also a little bit in economics and also law. So I dabbled in like a lot of different classes. I tried like a class from each department that I was interested in. And then someone recommended law, letters, and society to me. I had no idea what it was. I looked into it, tried a couple classes, filled out the application, and decided that would be my major. And so, yeah, I think this might come up later, but I also want to emphasize like it's okay to not know a fixed academic plan when you come into UChicago, because there's lots of room for flexibility, both within the core and in terms of picking your major. So there's no pressure in like knowing exactly what you want to do when you come in.
Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit too. When I got in, it was right before the pandemic hit. And once that started, I think everyone was kind of alone with their thoughts for a little bit. And so I thought a lot, even before I came to campus, about, what I was going to take, what I wanted to learn. There was a time where I was like, I'm going to be a biology student. And so I was able to try out a bunch of different things when I got to campus based on those kind of initial thoughts. And what's really great about the first year is that you really don't declare a major until a little bit into the year. And I really used that time to figure out what I was really interested in now that I was actually taking classes and preparing to study more, more outside of the core. So that was kind of my process. And I really loved cinema studies. I had a really great first class. I got involved with Firescape Films, which is a film production group on campus, and a few other arts groups. And I was also really interested in history, and I took the Civ core this year instead of a little bit later on. So I was kind of immersed with more historical programs within the college. And I think both of those things really kind of helped guide me towards the major plan that I'm on right now.
Awesome, thank you. What resources do you use to help plan for your major / courses?
I could talk about this a little bit. On the My U Chicago, there's a thing where it's my planner, and which is super valuable. I only found it like recently, and it basically allows you to look through all the future quarters and classes and like put in different classes and you can literally choose an exact class that you want to take, or just a general, like, I want to take an art history class. And it's a great way to plan out like how to get all of your major requirements in all of the 4 years while still like getting through your core requirements. And also, like, if you want to like study abroad or do other things, it gives you kind of space so that you can see all of those, how those plans will play out and what the different timing will be of that. And so I found that super helpful for planning and kind of understanding my major requirements and how I was going to be able to do them.
Thank you, Oscar. So how do you choose and organize your classes, and how do you know how many classes to take and in what order?
I really suggest, I guess, using the college catalog, just because a lot of that information will be on there. Also, a lot of divisions or departments may have their own websites that you can kind of check and see what's being offered. For a lot of the humanities courses, or at least programs, you'll have to take maybe a few introductory classes just to understand the basics of the major. But beyond that, it's a lot of elective and maybe even thesis-based work. Which is really nice because you can kind of be open-ended. You don't need to plan every course in advance like you might have to do if you were in molecular engineering or a more STEM-heavy class with fewer elective choices. Additionally, at least for history and cinema studies, I know that the courses can change every quarter. Some things are only ever offered once or once a year. Which gives you flexibility to take really interesting courses that you might not have expected, and they'll still count and still kind of work for your degree. Also, when it comes to scheduling, the college and pre-reg is pretty good about not like double booking you. As long as you bid for certain courses that aren't gonna like intersect in terms of time, you should be pretty good to go in terms of scheduling and figuring out how to get to and from classes.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. And I just want to add on that another thing I use is to look at the course evaluations and the professor evaluations. And I find this really helpful because you can see what previous students thought about the class, what they learned from it. And also, it's good to judge whether the professor's teaching style suits yours, whether you want it to be a more lecture-based class or a more discussion-based class, whether it's very reading heavy and writing heavy, or if you want it to be more about in-person discussion. And so I found that really helpful as well. Another thing I do to choose my classes is to just ask around, ask your upperclassmen in your houses, like what they found the most interesting and which classes they love the most, or the professors they found the most interesting, and just take that class.
Great, thank you, everyone. So to give you all the panelists a little background about this next question, the Hume class pre-registration took place in June and students should have received that placement this week. And all incoming students are required to meet with your academic advisor this summer before the second round of pre-registration in August. But the question is, what is the class registration / pre-registration process look like?
I can take that one, I guess. Now that you've got your Hume placement, you're going to have up to 3 more classes that you can take. A lot of students tend to take a math their first quarter just because that requirement is one that you can get out pretty easily. And additionally, when it comes to the bidding process, like people call it the bidding process, you'll have basically 10 slots to choose from when it comes to the classes that you want to take. You usually get the available course listings for that specific quarter within the My U Chicago kind of platform about a week before you're able to bid on classes. And I recommend using course evaluations, the course catalog, maybe department websites, maybe asking upperclassmen if you know them, just to gauge a little bit more information about certain professors, certain classes. And also it's kind of recommended that you choose multiple sections of the same type of class, especially your first year, to kind of ensure that you will get that class if you really need it right now. So if you're planning on taking Soc or Civ or a biology core or anything else, maybe putting 1 or 2 different sections within that course listing, which you'll be able to look for and find on the website pretty easily within that kind of bidding list. And then you can kind of move around how you want to rank certain classes. So if you rank something number 1, that means like it's your top class, you really want that class. And then as you kind of build your way down the list, trying to make sure things don't conflict in terms of time and space, as you move down the list, you'll kind of be able to give the program the classes that you'd want to take this quarter. And about a week after that, or sometimes 2, you'll get your results. And then once classes start during that add drop period, you can kind of move it around. Hopefully that's clear. Honestly, I think taking a look at the program like a week before you can pre-reg, because you'll be able to look at the classes, is my best advice. That way it's pretty easy. You can kind of gauge how the system works like very visually in that way. And once you kind of figure your way out around that kind of program, you'll be able to really think about bidding in a little bit more easy way.
Thank you, Anna. Did anybody else have anything to add to that? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. What advice do you all have for first years regarding the core course selection?
I can talk about this a little bit. I would say just a few pieces of advice. Like, you guys are gonna do Hume, and like Anna said, likely a math and maybe like a language. And right now you guys are doing like the placement tests and stuff to figure that out. And one piece of advice, because I was talking to some of like the people in my peer mentorship group recently, I don't stress too much about the placement tests and where you're put for your language or your math and all of that stuff, because these are the core classes and they're not meant to be like super like challenging and get you really into the major and like what you're doing. Like, if you are really into math or language and you want to take a higher level class, you can, and like you'll be able to, and you just have to talk to your academic advisor and people in the department. But it's totally not something to be stressed about and worried about just with the placement tests and just with these core classes, because they're meant to be core classes that everyone takes and everyone has to do. So it's going to be all first years, and they're going to be people at your level and in these fields, especially with the math and language. And like, so I would just, that's a big suggestion. I would not stress too much about those just like take them. And if you don't place high, that's not an issue. It just means that you'll be in a class that might not be as difficult for you, which is not bad.
Another piece of advice I'd give is that you want to consider like how you learn best, whether you want 3 or 4 classes, whether or not you want all your classes to be reading heavy, or whether you want a balance between homework that is P-sets and homework that's essays. So yeah, that's also something I'd consider when picking courses, both from the core and from your major. I think a lot of first years just focus on the core, and that's great too, but definitely try just a couple interesting courses from a major that you might like, or a major that you're intending to take. And that can really give you a great insight into like whether or not you like it. And having that insight in your first year is pretty advantageous.
Great, thank you. Our next question is about double majoring and minoring. If you're a double major or minor, can one class count towards both?
Can they? Oscar, you're nodding. I don't know.
I was nodding at my answer to a Q&A question. I'm sorry.
I don't think so, right? Or they can't count for major.
Yeah, I think they can count like the same class, if it's cross-listed on the catalog, can count towards 2 majors, or 3 if you have 3. And it can count between minors, but it can't count for a major and a minor. And then core classes are totally separate, and they don't count towards a major or a minor.
Yeah, Alice is right, because you can major in both chemistry and biochemistry, and you don't have to take chemistry twice. Yeah. I can speak towards double majoring too, though. I know everyone here is a double major, but I just finished typing out an answer in the Q&A about it, which is, which was about my experience as a double majoring in both fundamentals and in a STEM course. And it just forces you to like think about what parts of each class like appeal to you. Like fundamentals is a very reading and analysis-based class, while chemistry is a very memorization and like math-based sort of like division. And I realized like I enjoyed both forms of learning, which is why I'm taking both. But if you find that you're leaning towards one more than the other, then I think that's what's beautiful about UChicago, is that you can take any class, even if you're not a major in it. And so you can take, like, for example, just chemistry classes you actually are interested in if you find yourself enjoying the discussion-based part of fundamentals for myself more.
I'll also just say something really quickly. There are so many courses, especially within humanities and social sciences, that will be cross-listed or a part of multiple different departments. I took a class that was history and gender studies cross-listed this past quarter, and it was super interesting. And part of me was like, maybe I should major in gender studies as well. So if you're unsure about what you want to study, or if 2 things are really interesting to you, maybe try out a course that could be cross-listed for both and just see how both of those majors might intersect, because sometimes you can petition for a dual thesis through both majors, or a way to kind of use both majors to kind of create your own kind of academic path.
Yeah, there are awesome classes in like every division and every major, and the worst obstacle you can make for yourself is say, oh, I can't take a gender studies class because I'm not a gender studies major, because that obstacle doesn't exist at UChicago for a reason. And there's so many chances to take, even just electives. It's worth it.
Great, thank you. And Oscar, do you mind sharing a little bit about one of the questions you responded to in the Q&A about how difficult is it to balance a humanities major and a STEM major?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing art history and economics, so it's not quite a STEM major, but they definitely don't like it's definitely two different majors that's like work and stuff. Jeffrey could probably add more to this, but basically, yeah, they don't overlap. It's very different things, but like I believe Jeffrey was saying, I think I love it because I'm doing very different things, two very different things with my classes. And balancing wise, I mean, I think in general with classes and with double majoring in any of this stuff, it's if you have your time organized well and you're able to figure out getting things done in a timely manner and know how to basically split up your time, then it will not be an issue. And and I think really you as a student, I found that for myself, I'm in charge of my time, and if I manage my time well and I figure out my classes, it never becomes an issue for double majoring or having very difficult classes or having a lot of classes, because it's just I know what my schedule is. I know when I need to work and when I can hang out with people and do other stuff. And so I think really it doesn't become an issue if you can figure out your own time management, would be my suggestion.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing about your experiences. Our next question is, what opportunities exist outside the classroom in regards to my division or major?
So this is pretty niche, but I know like law, letters, and society. And I think the history department is also trying to do this more now that we're going back in person next year. They hold a bunch of like speaker series and they invite guest speakers from the law school and from other universities to come in and speak about a topic either in history or in law. And they're really fun to go to just for like an hour or two each week. And yeah, so sometimes your professors will recommend these speaker series, and they're just an interesting way to connect what you learn in the class to like a real world situation.
Yeah, I was able to take an art history class this past quarter that was linked to an exhibit at the Smart Museum, which is a museum on campus. It was a really cool exhibit, and we got to go to the museum basically every time. But because it wasn't just part of the class, a lot of what my professor kind of recommended we do in order to kind of increase our knowledge about the stuff, about the content, was there were multiple speaker sessions tied to that exhibit. And we also went to the to the Art Institute in downtown Chicago for like kind of independent look at Renaissance art as like a kind of bigger picture thing. And I'm not an art history major, so it's not necessarily tied to my major, but it really changed and kind of helped rebuff the kind of content I was learning in class in a very in your face kind of way, which I really, really engaged with.
Great, thank you. So some of you mentioned that you were involved in some sort of research. So how do you get involved with research, and how difficult is it to get a research job or opportunity on campus?
I mean, for me, I totally I mean, basically I emailed a art history professor that I had last year. I'm a rising third year, so as a first year, and she had said that she had certain opportunities for research and all this stuff. And I emailed her at the beginning of our spring quarter. I said, do you have anything for me to do? Because I just want to work in art history and I want something to do. And throughout the spring quarter and the summer, I've gotten like a job with her, basically cataloging all this art that like there's really not a lot of information on, that she's seen in various countries when she was a graduate student. And it's just it's like a lot of documentation and cataloging, and she has me like read some articles and like kind of summarize them for her and stuff. So so I think definitely getting like becoming friendly and developing a good relationship with your professors, especially in the humanities departments, is really valuable because they are always needing interns and people to work for them. I had another art history professor this past year, and we became close and we got along well. And she basically there's going to be a public art exhibit at the university, and she was like, you should really apply to become part of working with this exhibit and helping out with it. So just in general, I think there's the professors have other things going on, and they always are in need of people to help them do all sorts of work. So I think developing a good relationship with your professors, and then just talking to them and being like, hey, do you have any sort of research or work that I can help you with, is a great way to get opportunities in that sense.
Thank you, Oscar. And speaking of your relationships with your professors, how, and anybody can speak to this, and I encourage that, how do any of you build those relationships with your professors, and how do you approach going about talking to them and asking for opportunities and internships?
I can speak to this. Also, if there's background noise, I'm very sorry. People are moving and it's hectic. But I think the best way to gain a better rapport with your professors is to just go to office hours and remember that they're people too. They're human, and they're a little intimidating in class, but 101, they're usually very nice. And they would love to just chat to you about their research or about things that you don't understand in class. And I've gone to office hours for classes that I have felt so overwhelmed in and come out feeling a lot better about the content in the class. And it just helps build a better relationship with your professors. You can ask them for recs and recommendations for what classes to take. They get to know you better as a student. And yeah, they get to know your learning style a lot better. And then that helps them also recommend classes for you in the future.
Great, thanks, Alice. Our next question is about study abroad. So even if you have not studied abroad, if you could speak to it, how does study abroad affect your studies and track completion?
I haven't studied abroad. I'm going to be a second year, so that wasn't really an option last year, but I am planning on studying abroad and actually using that time to count towards my major. There are lots of programs worldwide that UChicago hosts based on certain majors or courses you can take. A lot of these study abroad programs I know are civilization study related, which is a part of the core. It's kind of like history, although I will say how I learned to write in my civ class was not how I learned to write in my history classes. There is a film program based in Paris that I'm planning on applying to for my third year in the winter, which will not conflict with graduation requirements for either of my majors. And so hopefully I'll be able to do that. But as long as you kind of plan a year in advance when you're applying for study abroad anyways, you're going to be able to know what's kind of in your way or what you need to get done ahead of or after that time away from campus. And that's just part of the study abroad program, regardless of what you are going to be studying. I think if you're a humanities major, it's probably, as a humanities major, study abroad is probably a little bit more manageable for you to figure out in your schedule than if you were on a tighter schedule in a different kind of division. I have a lot of friends who are in molecular engineering who will not be able to study abroad because of certain core requirements. But there's a lot of options available, and you can even sometimes spend a year or a semester or a quarter at a different university if there are certain classes that you really want to take that are specific to Oxford or somewhere else.
I can share my thinking as someone who's considering studying abroad next year. I'm right now on the roster for a study abroad program in winter for Paris, and it is difficult. But this is obviously like personal experience. I have the biggest concern for me has been fulfilling the requirements for both my majors, because as in-person classes are starting, I can't just like watch recordings anymore. So my process for handling that has just been, I've been in contact with all of my advisors. You get my advisor for like whatever major you're in. So I've been in contact with them, being like, what happens if I miss this requirement? And what can I substitute instead? And we are slowly figuring it out. But it is something, like Anna said, that you do have to plan for. But if you want to do it, I do want to do it. So maybe I'll be in Paris.
Thank you, Anna and Jeffrey, for sharing those things. Jeffrey, I was actually wondering if you could speak a little bit more about a question that you answered. Can someone speak to the fundamentals, issues, and text program?
I would love to speak about the fundamentals, issues, and text program. That's all my friends asked me to do. It is a program where you ask a question. It's supposed to be any question that has always nagged at you. Not always. Mine only started nagging at me when I had to think about one. But it's where you verbalize a sort of curiosity that most of us just like usually carry. It's supposed to be quote unquote a fundamental question, but it doesn't have to be really deep. You know, one of my favorite friends' question is, what is sexy? Which I think is an awesome question. There's like, what is family? My question is, how does fiction help me relate to reality? Which is basically an excuse to watch lots of horror movies, which is awesome. But I think you can get the gist, which is that you basically pursue that question for 2 years, for like the rest of your time in the college, or the rest of your time in the major, and you get a lot of freedom to take any classes you want. I've taken classes in political theory, like classes on utopia, why we keep aspiring for utopia, why we never reach utopia. I took classes on film, like I said, about like, I took Nazi cinema class, which was also focused heavily on like this trying to force ideology into like reality, and how they like were so convinced that they could do it, which was beautiful. I want to take art history classes too. So, right, it's instead of like entering a certain field like anthropology or philosophy, I guess, and them starting and saying you have to read Plato and then you have to read Hobbes or whoever, and you have to like stick to this strict syllabus. Fundamentals is a lot more whatever, like freeing, unless you read kind of whatever you're interested in. And I really can't hype it enough. It's an incredible major because I got to skip all of the boring philosophers that I didn't want to read. And now I'm doing like the cool, sexy ones from the 20th century who are like, the world isn't real and TV is actually a window to our lives. And I'm like, wow, TV is actually a window to our lives. And then my friends learn not to ask me about fundamentals anymore. It's really, really great. You get you apply your first year, apply in quotation marks, because it's more of a grounds to like ask you to like flesh out your curiosity. They really like to work with you, and they work with you so much that they normally will assign you like a personal advisor. I've met with my advisors so much, and they work with you together. You do a junior paper, which is like the culmination of a lot of research that you do your sophomore year and your sophomore summer that I'm doing right now. And then senior year, you get examined on everything. But all right, that's why people don't ask me about fundamentals anymore. But that's basically it.
That was great, Jeffrey. Thank you. That sounds very, very interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and pick another question that I know Anna already answered, but I think it's important for everyone to hear. And then I'll give everyone an extra minute where it looks like we're running low on questions. So if any other students want to submit any other questions, now is the time to do it. But the question I want to ask all of you is, how are office hours usually arranged? Has it ever conflicted with other classes or other priorities? And how long do they typically last? So if anybody has anything to add on to Anna's answer or say anything else about office hours, please do.
I think office hours varies professor by professor. I had a social prof who would just tell us at the end of class when he was free. And then we would just go up and like tell him, I'm going to come at this time. Is that okay? But usually at the beginning of every quarter, the professor will give you a syllabus, and at the top there should be arranged like a set time for office hours that you can drop in. This past year it was on Zoom. The year before it was in person. So hopefully this year it will be in person as well. And you just go to their office or their Zoom room and chat with them. Usually they let you stay for as long as you want to. I've never been kicked out of office hours. Professors just love to talk about their research as well. And so it can go on for a little while. Yeah, but they're also very flexible. And if you can't make the regular office hours, just shoot them an email and they'll set up something else for you at a time that like suits your schedule.
I'll also emphasize that you don't have to like fulfill certain prerequisites to go to office hours. Like you can go if you didn't do the readings, or you can go if you understand everything and have no questions. It's just a great time. You'll sort of feel it. Just let yourself be comfortable with a professor, I think. And then the professors you vibe with the most, I just go to their office hours all the time, and then we just chat about usually how behind I am, but sometimes other things.
Great, thank you. We have one more question for today. How do you find the time to balance extracurriculars with your courses?
I'm happy to talk about that one. I got really involved pretty quickly, which I think is a benefit of starting during a pandemic because you don't have to run to certain places to get involved. But I'm currently a script coordinator for Firescape Films, which basically means I host a script writing workshop every week for at least an hour. I'm also on the board of a kind of an art gallery organization on campus called FODA. I've done writing work for The Shady Dealer, and I've done a few other things for a few other organizations, mainly film related. And I took 4 classes every quarter so far, and it was a lot of work, but I think time management is a big skill. And like saying time management is something that people should master is kind of a given. So I'll try to give a few tips. I think making sure that you kind of write everything down before you do it. If that means, doing a to-do list or having a calendar or a planner, it can be just really good to visualize what you need to do, because sometimes it can be really stressful if you know you have a lot to do, but you're not really sure what. Also trying to complete assignments when you receive them or ahead of the deadline, because sometimes you'll get a lot kind of jammed in at one time. And giving yourself a specific place to study that isn't reserved. Like, don't study on your bed. Don't do that. You're going to get distracted and like take a nap. And then finally, making sure that you make time for socialization, for extracurriculars, for watching movies, for going downtown, all of that. Because that's just as important as your academic life. Because if you're not doing that, like, why go to Chicago? Why be in the city? And so those are kind of things that I kind of stuck with this year, and that kind of helped me manage my time and get good grades and do all that stuff. And I think also, if you're really interested in something academically, I think a lot of the time you may find that the classes are very theory-based. And if you want to get more practical skills, you might want to check out an RSO or a club or another organization on campus that can kind of help you do that certain work if a class isn't offering that. That's not to say that all classes are theory-based. I had a class where I created my own research and archive, which was very cool. And so even within your kind of coursework, you can be doing humanities work.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about the time management earlier. I think that's totally smart. I think the tips, I love your tips, and I think it's different for everybody. Like, I would also just say find your own way that you can manage your time, because I don't like have exactly all of that, and like I'm I'm not always finishing things before the deadline or perfectly or anything, or like just before the deadline and stuff like that. And I think it's just valuable. Figure out what works specifically for you. Like I find what works for me is I like to make sure that I'm done with everything that I want to get done by a certain time, like in the day. Like I'm like, by 9 p.m. I want to be done, and then I'm gonna go hang out with my friends or do something else. And so then even if I don't get everything done that I need to, I'm by 9 p.m. I'm turning everything off and I'm doing something else, and I'm taking a break and getting to do other things. So I think it definitely is time management, but really definitely goals. I totally think they're great too. I'm saying just I think figure out what works well for you and what can be helpful in general for each person, because I think it really depends on how everyone individually deals with that. But yeah, I think in general it's totally not an issue to find time for extracurriculars and hanging out with friends and having a social life. And it's like, I feel like in general, you have to actively not seek that out to miss it. Like you will have friends, you will have people to be around, you will have extracurriculars. And like, I feel like it will happen either organically or if you reach out to do it in all sorts of ways. So like, I feel like you have to actively work not to not have that. So I would not be too worried about balancing all of that, because it will end up happening in some way or another, whether you're just meeting people from your floor or your house and doing things with them, or you're branching out and becoming leaders of RSOs and clubs and stuff. But yeah.
I want to agree with everything Oscar said and emphasize that we're all products. I'm sure I don't really know anyone else here on the panel, but I'm sure we're all not just products of straight up and up success in all our classes and RSOs. We have all experienced what Oscar's talking about, or I won't speak for him. What I'm talking about is that overwhelming, like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? End of the world where you have 3 papers due in a night. And that I'm going to start assignments at the beginning of the, when they're assigned idea, you're like, where did that even go? And that will happen to everyone who's in this call at some point. And that is okay, because we all made it.
I can definitely agree with everything that was said. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Let's see. Yes, definitely keep checking the chat for everything, for all the messages from our panelists today. But it looks like that was the last question for today. So I first want to give a big thank you to all the panelists for being here today and giving us your time and knowledge and wisdom on your experiences here at UChicago. And also a big thank you to the students and families who are here today for your time. And as a reminder, a copy of the recording will be posted on the communications from the college section of the orientation website. And if you have specific questions about a major, visit the UCMP directory and search for peer mentors via majors, and Whitney just sent that link in the chat. And with that, I want to wish everyone to have a good evening, and thank you.